will introduce our speaker shortly. So before we proceed, some quick guidelines. Please mute yourself when the speaker is talking. And if you have any question during the session, please use the chat window. And at the end of the session, we'll have 10 minutes that will be allocated for Q&A, for Q&As. Okay, and lastly, please note that this session will be recorded. And now let me hand over to Danusha for the introduction of Subash.
Hi everyone, So I'm Danusha and thanks for joining us. So today we have our own Agile Mauritius member, Subash Rajcoomar, who is going to present and speak on how psychological safety boosts team performance. So a bit on Subash. So Subash is currently working at the Mauritius Commercial Bank as an Agile team coach and has more than 16 years in the IT industry. So he started his career in the industry in 2005 as a software engineer after graduating from University of Mauritius with a bachelor's degree in computer science. He also holds an MBA from University of Mauritius. So he's a competent and experienced PSM2 and PMP certified leader with over 10 years experience in managing multidisciplinary teams of varying sizes across traditional agile projects or products. So Subash is also a servant leader and strives to build high performance team for training, mentoring, coaching in a safe environment so as to deliver maximum value to stakeholders. So without further delay, I now hand over to Subash.
Thank you, Danusha. So let me try to share my screen first. Bear with me a couple of seconds. All right, so can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
All right, great. So thanks, Danusha and Roy, for this introduction. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Agile Mauritius, for giving me this opportunity to talk today around what, in my opinion, is one of the most important aspects in our way of work, which is psychological safety. A quick view of the agenda for today. I'm going to talk about the what, a little history around psychological safety and what it is. And then I will move on to why it is important for high performance team or teams in general. All right. And I will also talk about some experience I have on how I created psychological safety for some of the team that I look after. So what is psychological safety? I'll start with some history. All right. So it's been around for quite some time now. It was first coined by some organizational researchers in the 1960s. However, not much was done until like 40 years afterwards by one of the leading person in psychological safety, who is Dr. Amy Edmondson. So Dr. Amy Edmondson did some research around clinical teams to find out on the performance of clinical teams. And she was surprised to find out that clinical teams with the best outcome actually admitted to their mistakes more than lower performing teams. All right. So teams which were safe, which were evolving in a safe environment where they could be vulnerable about their mistakes, convey their mistake to each other and learn from those, had the best outcomes. And from there, she proposed that psychological safety is one of the key factors for team performance. Later, this was further corroborated by Google in their project Aristotle, where they identified that psychological safety was the single most important factor that a team must possess in order to perform at their highest potential. All right, there were other factors as well, but psychological safety came up first in those factors. And more recently, in 2019, the Accelerate State DevOps report showed that psychological safety is not only important for teams, but also for the entire organization. Right. So what is it about? There's a lot of articles on psychological safety, lots of definition on psychological safety on the net. The one I like is from Dr. Ahmed Monson, which goes that psychological safety is about not being punished or humiliated for speaking up ideas, question, concern, and mistakes. It's about being vulnerable about your mistakes and working in an environment which enables you to really convey those mistakes to each other, your thoughts, your ideas, so that you can learn from them and you can take better decisions out of them. Why is it important though for teams? I know it's high performance team there, but it's about teams in general. Before going into that, I want to show you this picture. Does any one of you know what this picture is or from where this picture is taken from? You can put it in the chat and someone can just tell me whatever you're putting there. Just a couple of seconds so you can, any idea where this picture is from? Do you have anything in the chat? Let's see, plane crash. No, it's not a plane crash. In fact, this is a picture of the Chernobyl power plant, which suffered meltdown, a massive meltdown in 1986, which directly killed 31 people and is estimated to have killed more than 4,000 indirectly. Now, research has shown that the plant in itself possesses a number of issues from an unsafe design. However, the culture of the country at that time, in the 1980s, did not encourage people to raise their concerns, to talk about the mistakes at their own risk, all right? So they didn't speak up about the mistakes, and so they couldn't really solve their problems or put in place processes that could solve those mistakes. What happened was during a simulated plant power shutdown, there was a series of mistakes that were done by the operators, which resulted in a steam explosion, followed by a nuclear explosion. This resulted in the death of, indirectly, more than 4,000 people. Now, the cause of this disaster was in large part because operators did not speak up about their concerns. They were not feeling safe to admit to mistakes so that they can learn from those mistakes and build on it so that they can improve the process, the power plant, and this resulted in death. So working in psychologically unsafe environment due to fear of suffering from negative consequences can be detrimental to the team, to the organization, and can have major impact on people in general. Now, if we compare that to the research that have been done by Dr. Ahmed Monson, which found out that clinical teams who are admitting to mistakes were performing better, we might come to the conclusion that if everyone is working in a psychologically safe environment, then we might have better opportunities or better processes that will impact the lives of people. So let's put that at a pause for the moment. Let's forget about Chernobyl. Let's forget about Dr. Ahmed Monson. Let's relate this to your experience. What I want you to do is take a moment, think about the best team you have been a member of. And what I want you to do is, in a word or two, I want you to tell me how it felt to work for that team. How did you feel being part of that team? So there's a slider there. Let's give a couple of minutes for you peeps to add something. For those who haven't used the slider, you can just scan the QR code or go on slider.com and put that code there. Let's see what comes up. Think of the best team that you have been member of, and how did you feel being part of that team? All right, can't see anything happening there.
Pasted it on the chat as well.
All right, so there it is. So like getting cake every day, excited. And we have some in the chat as well. Let me check. All right, so I thought the code was there. Let's give it a happy to go to work. Interesting, yeah. Proud, free, yeah. Yeah, feel proud, free to do anything, yeah. That will bring value to the organization or to yourself, the team. All right, I will leave this slide on and you can just add your thoughts. I will share it afterwards. So the thing that you're just saying, or most probably thing that you feel when you really work for high performance team. Now, what are high performance team? High performance teams are a group of highly skilled people working in cross-functional areas who focus on achieving a common business goal. They have a culture of shared values towards a common objective. These team members, they trust and respect each other and recognize each other's expertise and working method. They also, while working in high performance team, these people have an open and clear way of communication and keep each other accountable. Very important, keep each other accountable for what needs to be done. So question here is, why is psychological safety important for such teams where trust thrives, where people keep each other accountable? I'm going to share 4 reasons with you why this is so. The first one is around increased collaboration. Now, when team members feel safe, they will open up, collaborate, and resolve issues as a team. It also allows team members to speak up, which is of utmost importance for its success. Now, in her book around crucial conversation, and I really like it, I really like that book, Kerry Patterson comes up with the concept of pool of shared meaning. What is that? Let me try to explain it by using an analogy. Let's say you have a lake where there are fishes, all right? So the thing is, the more water that there is in the lake, the better, the probability of the fishes surviving is more. And the less water there is in the lake, the probability decreases. The probability of the fish to survive decreases likewise, all right? It's the same thing for team, all right? When safety primes, when team feel safe to in an environment where they can contribute, collaborate, everyone is comfortable to add their meaning, views, perception to the shared pool, the pool of shared meaning. And this, when we have a lot of ideas in that pool of shared meaning, it improves communication and collaboration, which help the team make better decisions and come up with solutions which better suit their needs. All right. So the more ideas, the more issue, the more idea, the more perception, the more thought that there are there, the better for the team to take decision. On the other hand, when a team is operating in a psychologically unsafe environment, it is difficult for them to add their opinion to this pool. And just like when there's no water in the lake, the fish dies, the same thing happens to teams. When there is less conversation, less ideas in that pool of shared meaning, the decision that the team needs to take might not be the correct one. The solution that the teams come up with might not be adapted to the team because not everyone has shared their views, their concerns around what is being discussed. So very important to have a safe environment where team can collaborate. Increased collaboration and communication brings around, of course, better decisions for the team. And this brings me to my second thing around why psychological safety is important for teams. It increases team engagement. In psychologically safe environment, team members feel heard because they have got their ideas, their thoughts, issues, opinions. They are valued. They are part of that pool of shared meaning where people can really take into consideration these ideas and thoughts and put it together to find a solution that better suits the team. So team members feel empowered and the teams are engaged towards delivering value to the organization and its customers. In such environment where team members feel safe, they hold each other accountable for the work that needs to be done, with the team taking the ownership of the value that needs to be delivered. Everyone is accountable for what needs to be delivered. It's not that it's not about building a team star, it's about building a star team. All right, so everyone is accountable for what needs to be delivered. And in those type of safe environment, there is a big element of trust among team members. Any behaviors that need to be corrected are identified, changes made, and these changes are made in the form of experiments. Now, that's a very nice term, experiments. And this brings me to my third point, fear of failure. All right, so now teams which are operating in psychologically unsafe environment rarely do experiments. They don't like to innovate. They don't like to come up with new ways of working because they fear that any failure that may originate from an experiment, because at the end of the day, an experiment is a hypothesis, and a hypothesis can either be successful or cannot be successful. All right. So if ever the experiment fails, they fear that whatever has originated from that experiment might be held against them and impact them in a negative way. In such cultures, it is difficult for teams or team members to come up with new ways of working. They fear to challenge the status quo. And what you will hear in this organization, and I sometimes hear that as well in many organizations, is, you know what, this is all how it's always been done. We don't want to change. It's always been done. They are resistant to change. This is, in my opinion, is the one phrase that prevents teams from taking calculated risks, experiment on ideas, and come up with new, improved, and better ways of working, which will ultimately allow them to deliver value earlier to the organization and its customers. Fear of failure or fear to admitting to mistakes, or even the fear to convey your concern can be disastrous, can have disastrous effects on an organization or even on the people. An example is the Chernobyl meltdown, where they didn't feel safe to raise their issues and concerns. Teams in which safety thrives have no fear of failure and in admitting to their mistakes. Just like the study done by Dr. Edmondson showed, teams which have no fear to admit their mistakes or failures are the ones which delivered on their outcomes. They were the higher performers. The reason is that you learn most when you fail or make mistakes, which drives the team and team members to experiment with new ways of working. Teams which fail fast learn faster. In fact, I'll go a bit, in my opinion, failure is just a stepping stone towards success. We shouldn't fear failure. Providing an environment where team members feel safe to experiment, fail and learn from their failures is of utmost importance if we want highly performing and successful teams. Now, we've spoken about increased collaboration. When the teams are evolving in a safe environment, there's increased collaboration, which leads to better team engagement. And better team engagement means that people feel safe, and they feel safe to fail fast, learn faster, they feel safe to do experiments. All these are ingredients towards the fourth reason why psychological safety is important, which is increased innovation. Now, psychologically safe environment means that team members feel safe to experiment on new ideas. Like I said, they feel safe to experiment on new ideas, on new ways of working, given that they do not fear being reprimanded for what they are doing, for the mistakes and failure they are doing. So they learn from the mistakes, they learn from the failures. It also means that these teams have better processes in place, which allow them to deliver value to the customers and organization earlier, innovative ways to deliver value, innovative products to deliver value, and have also reduced the feedback loop and continually improve themselves, the team and the organization at large. In this current era, with COVID and everything, the teams, organizations which do not innovate can be detrimental to them. I'll take some examples that we have of organizations which feared to innovate. Organization like Nokia, one of them is Nokia, which feared to innovate, and at a point in time when Apple came up with their smartphone, they were gone. So fear to innovate, fear of failure can lead organization to disappear. All this is good. Why? What is psychological safety? Why is it important? The question is, how do we bring about this way of working? How do we create safety for our teams to thrive? This brings me to the next part of this talk, which is about how do we create and harness psychological safety for high-performance team. I'm now going to share with you some ideas that I've tried with teams, some of my successes, and also some of my failures, and what I did to rectify those failures. All right, so how do we create and harness psychological safety? The first thing is that I believe in, first and foremost, is about making everything explicit for the team and its team members. Things like what do we need to work on? How we need to work? How do we need to do the work? How do we need to respect each other? What happens if there are conflicts or decisions to be made? How do we self-organize or self-manage as a team? These might appear simple questions or hard ones, but if left unanswered, could be detrimental to the team. All of these should be well understood and agreed as a team. All right. Now, there's this book on Lift Off by Diana Larsen and Ainsley Nears, which explains how this is made possible by doing what they call a team lift off, where everyone involved comes together to define the initial approach and plans and to build team building. I'm not going to go into details of it, just so we know there are 3 elements to it. The first one is around the purpose, which defines the team vision and mission. The second one is about alignment, consists of team values and agreements. And the third one is context, which is about making the team aware of their responsibilities and interaction with their stakeholders. The examples that I'm going to share with you today is around alignment. How do we bring alignment so that we can increase psychological safety in a team? So really by ensuring that these are explicit, the team knows what they need to do, how they need to do it, and what value they will be delivering. Knowing this, the team members can have conversation around these, reach agreements, and increase the safety of the team. Let me give you some example on how I created this environment for my team. The first one is around team agreement. It's about defining how the team interact with each other, how they respect each other, how they solve issues and problems within the team. It is something that is done by the team, for the team. I, as Subash, can't go and tell a team, this is your agreement, work on it. No, it is done by the team. Now, this agreement is done at the start when they are just starting a project or a product, or whenever the team feel that they need to update it. For example, when a new team member comes into the team, or when they feel that they no longer fit their ways of working. Remember, they're always innovating, they're always coming up with new ways of working, they're always experimenting. So at a point in time, what they have written there as agreement may change. So it is important to remember that an agreement, a team working agreement, is not something which is carved in stones. It doesn't stay there static forever. It's something that the team works on every time, it evolves over time. There are 2 ways that I really like doing this. The first one is around social contract. As you see in the example, this is an example of a social contract from one of my teams. And the team came up with a contract around themes like transparency, they are going to brainstorm, how they're going to work around their work-life balance, their personal space, feedback, and so on and so forth. The fact that these simple things have been made visible and explicit gave the team opportunities to have conversation around those. Whenever there was an issue, whenever they had to give feedback to someone, or whenever they had to come to a decision, what needs to be done. The simple fact that this was visible, helped the team form a psychologically safe environment for them to interact and provide feedback to each other. How did we come to this? How did we come to this social contract? There is normally 5 questions that I usually ask my team to help them come up with this type of social contract. The first one is around culture and atmosphere. What is the type of culture or atmosphere that you want to create for the team? Second one is around conflict management. How do we want to be with one another when there's a conflict, when things do not go well? What would make this team more powerful? How can we improve our ways of working? How can we continually improve ourselves? Around the values of the team, what do we value as a team? And lastly, how do we take decisions as a team? 5 questions might be very simple question, like I said. However, if these are left unanswered when the team are starting to work, it might be detrimental for them because people would not know how to interact with each other, how to respect each other, and what is it that we need to work on? How do we prioritize? How do we take decision, etc. A second form of team agreement that I really like is the high performance tree from the book Coaching Agile Teams by Liz Atkins. It's a little variation of the team agreement, but have the same powerful impact in creating safety for the teams. Just quickly, the roots represent the values. I like to look at the stem as the holding thing that hold the team together. The leaves is around what we are going to do to achieve our goals, which are the fruits. The idea is to use this as a powerful tool to help the team reach agreements on how they want to work and improve over time. Once this is visible, the team will gradually connect to it whenever they have issues or need to make a decision. Okay, so I even had my teams, one of my teams, which took that high performance tree into retrospective to see where they need to improve. Now, there are several questions that the team can ask themselves when they have a high performance tree. Things like, where are the roots weak? What can we work on? So they can have those conversations around what they can work on to improve themselves. Where are the roots weak? Where are our values weak? What are the things that we want to do from the leaves? What are the things that we want to improve on so that we can deliver better value? Or are we getting any fruit from the actions that we have been taking? So very powerful tool that I see to increase the safety of the room and get the team to start conversation around different things, different aspects of their work. This is an example of one of the high performance tree of one of my team. I know the tree, I'm sorry, the tree is not very visible. It's an old picture. However, the one thing that I want you to draw attention to is the versioning at the top right. Remember, whatever agreement the team reaches when they draw the tree is not cast in stone. Like I said, it's evolving, and the team can always review it based on the current context, or if there are any new team members who join. The team in question updated the tree. All right, so they put the versioning there. So the first time they did it, it was version 0.1, second time they did it, it's version 0.2. And I think in the case, what they did was they added some values to it. Just a little anecdote I want to share with you is that at a certain point, I remember I was on leave. And when I got back to office, I was surprised to see that they have inverted the tree on the wall. I was quite surprised, and I thought they were pulling my leg because I was always after them, telling them, you know, whatever decision you take, look after the tree, look at the tree. What are the things that you're working on? It was like pestering them, look at the tree. So I asked, why is that a joke? Hey, peeps, why is the tree inverted? You're playing a joke on me. And I was really, I was quite proud of the answer that they gave me. What they told me that they had a retrospective the day before, and what in that retrospective, they agreed to work on one of the items in the value, which was commitment. They were a bit low on that aspect. And so to ensure that they focused on that, what they did was they came to their area, to their working area, they inverted the tree so that the priority, they knew that the priority was commitment, and they had to work on commitment, which resulted in the tree being upside down. That was the moment, in fact, that I knew that the team has adopted the tree. And secondly, and I think the most important aspect was that that was the moment that I knew that the team was safe enough to take decision to work on some aspect of it, of the tree, and to go a step further by inverting it in their area, which means that they were also comfortable in their area. They also had that safety area where they could do anything in their area, where they can invert the tree, where they can take decision, have conversation around things. That was, from my perspective, is how you need to feel when working in a psychologically safe environment, where you can go into your environment and do whatever needs to be done to deliver value to your customers or to yourself. I talked about making everything explicit at the first aspect to create psychological safety. The second one is around ensuring. The second one that I tried so as to increase safety of the team is about holding blameless ceremonies or meetings. In the current situation, in the correct context with COVID and everything, we spend a lot of time probably at home, working from home, and a lot of our time and energy goes into meetings and ceremonies. It is therefore very important that whenever we have these meetings, it is done in a psychologically safe condition. Remember, we want everyone to add to the pool of shared meaning so that we can have better ideas, come up with the best solution for the teams. And whenever there is a problem, the first thing that we do is we have a tendency to blame someone. Subash, it's because of you that you did that. In my experience, the moment you do that, the moment you point finger at someone and tell that person that it's because of you that this happened, the psychological safety of the room decreases to nil. And you see, psychological safety is quite contagious. Whenever someone doesn't feel safe in an area, it's contagious. Everyone will feel unsafe in that area as well. So it automatically reduces the safety of the room, and we start discussing about who did what rather than how to solve a situation. And at the end of the day, what happens is we come out of the meeting without a decision taken or by taking the wrong decision. I would like to draw your attention to the phrase on the screen, which is also called the prime directive. So what we're saying here is basically, let's look at the situation at hand, and that our people, our best they could in a certain or given context and situation to come to that result. So we look at the situation and not at the situation or behavior, and not at the person himself or herself. All right. So now, how do we know that the room is safe for everyone to contribute to the conversation? What I usually do, from my experience, is that I ensure that I read this prime directive to the room, especially if it's a new team or new people have joined the team, and explain to them what it means. And what I also have is what we call a safety check when it loads. Yeah. So safety check are done so that we can have an indication of how comfortable the room is to contribute to the conversation. And when I say the room, is the people who are in the room. Now, there are multiple ways to do that. The one that I do is quite simple. It's like a scale rating of 1 to 5. 1 being that you're not comfortable sharing your thoughts, and 5 being you're very comfortable sharing your thoughts. Now, care should be taken that that rating is anonymous, because people will tend to not give a rating if that is not anonymous, or will tend to be biased. There are certain teams, and there is one such team that I work for, that I'm working for currently, where whenever I ask for safety, they just raise their hand and say, it's a 5 or 3 or a 4. That team, and I'm quite impressed with that team because they are, let me put it that way, they are safe enough to tell me that they are unsafe in the meeting. So whenever they are unsafe, they just tell me it's a 2 or a 1. All right. So a high average means that we continue with the meeting. The reason that this is done is because if people felt that they were being forced into a meeting, chances of them not contributing, that is going into silence mode or contributing negatively to that meeting, are high. So we might come out with the wrong decision, with the wrong solutions. So very important to do these checks regularly. So that we can have constructive and productive meetings, even if they are not in meetings, because they know that they are safe they are in a safe environment where they can discuss and share ideas. Before I go on, I do have an example where the team was not really safe to convey the ideas in the meeting. But before I go into that story, what I would like to know from you, and it's another slider there, what I would like to know from you is, based on what we just discussed, what would you do if you did a safety, if you go out, all right, the conference is done, tomorrow you go to office and you do a safety check and you see that safety check is low. What would you do? Let's give a couple of seconds, like 30 seconds for you peeps to just add your comments there. See what comes up. Counterfeit behavior. Oh. All right. What else? What would you do if the safety is low? Look for another job opportunity. Okay. Might make sense if the organization is not a safe environment. Might make sense. Stop the meeting. All right. Yeah. So my example was, I was in such a situation where we were having a retrospective, in fact, and I asked for a safety check. I told the team, all right, how comfortable are you? 1 to 5. And what happened really was the average safety was 2 point something. And I knew at that time, it was the first time that I was doing it. I was still new to this way of working. And what I thought about was, all right, the safety is low, which means that people will not be happy or comfortable to share their experience, their thoughts in their retrospective, especially in a retrospective. So what I did was basically I rescheduled the meeting and told them, peeps, since it's a low value, we are rescheduling it. And what I also did was have one-to-one with each one of them, because remember, it's anonymous. I won't know who is unsafe and who was safe. So I did one-to-one with each one of them and tried to understand what was the context, why they were not feeling free, and tried to coach them and guide them towards how to feel better as a team. So that was around what I did when safety was low. All right. A third point, and I think this is also very important when you're trying to create a psychologically safe environment. It's also about understanding what psychological safety is not. All right. I feel that knowing this from a leadership perspective or even a team member perspective is very important so that we can create the right environment for high performance team to thrive. See, we don't want to create environments where we just say that psychological safety exists just for the sake of saying it. All right, we want to be sure that we have created the right environment where people can thrive. Now, there is this article on Forbes that I read about an article from Timothy Clark, where he shares 7 ideas of what psychological safety is not. I'm probably not agreeable to all the 7 ideas, but the 3 ideas that I'm very much connect to myself are these. The first one is psychological safety is not a shield from accountability. Now, what happens is that non-performing employees tend to invoke it as an excuse for poor performance by insisting that, yeah, we are in a psychologically safe environment, which means that we are valuing our people and building relationships. It's true, psychological safety is about building a relationship, but it's not about shielding ourselves from accountability. it's not about giving people a pass when they don't perform. It's not a diplomatic immunity from having to deliver results. On the contrary, the whole point of having a psychologically safe environment means that we want our people and teams to thrive and take accountability of the work that needs to be done and the value that comes out of it. Very important. It's not a shield from accountability. It's in fact should enable the team to hold each other accountable for what needs to be done. Secondly, it's not about being nice. It's not about creating that false harmony or compassion that will prevent us from engaging in those tough conversations that are required for us to solve problems or create new solutions. On the contrary, it must not prevent us from taking those tough decisions that will help the team get better. Of course, we don't want to be rude, but we don't want also to be in a denial state where we say, all right, let's not talk about that because it's not psychologically safe. It's not being nice. Niceness without pure intent is counterfeit. On the contrary, what happens when you don't mean to be nice, but you aren't being nice? What happens is that instead of increasing the safety of the team, it induces fear and mistrust and decreases safety of the team. Thirdly, there are some leaders who might come and say, you know what, today we have taken the decision that the organization is a psychologically safe environment, and we want you to speak up. It is now safe to speak up. Just saying this phrase doesn't mean that we are in a psychologically safe environment. It would have been so easy if that was the case. I wouldn't be in front of you talking about all these things. All right. So being rhetorical about it doesn't mean that we are in a safe environment. In fact, by saying this phrase and not meaning it, have the reverse effect of making people and team feel unsafe. And it might also build a toxic environment where people do not want to work anymore. So, to conclude, what I would like to say is that we as leaders or team members should create a psychologically safe environment so our teams can collaborate, they can stay engaged, they can experiment, fail fast and learn faster, so that they can innovate and provide more value. Thank you. And if you have any question, I can always answer them.
Thank you, Subash. So that was very nice talk and perspective as well for all of us. Let me see in the chat if we have a question. I see. I think it's related to psychological safety. So from Delphine, once we know that the psychological safety is quite high in the team, should we continue with the safety check each time for a retro?
I would say yes. That's my opinion. I would say yes, because it might be that today people are safe in the retro, all right, or in any ceremonies, but something might have happened over the course of the day or the week that makes some people feel unsafe, all right, to collaborate or to give their opinion. So it's very important that, and I do it as a ritual. Every meeting that I go, I do the safety check. Even if everyone there seems to be safe, I still do it, because appearances doesn't give you the clue, right, on whether people are safe or not. All right, so I do it systematically, whether previously they were safe or not, I still do it. I would say yes.
From Avi in the question. So I would recommend that we ask if people are fine if a meeting is recorded.
Yeah, very important that as well. And I think we do ask that every time that we record meeting, that Peeps, are you okay? Are you fine that this meeting is being recorded? Because it might not be visible, especially when we are working from home, but some people might not want things to be recorded or whatever they say to be recorded. And if we don't ask for permission, what happens is those people, the psychologically, the safety of these people reduces, and they might tend to go into silence mode and not contribute to that meeting. So yeah, very important to ask permission to people whenever we are doing something, whenever we are recording or whenever we are taking a decision for them.
Thank you. We have another one in Slido, and I think Harold added it in the chat as well. Can average skill people from a high performance team form a high performance team, or is it only possible to form high performance team when you have highly skilled people?
My opinion is that high performance team are built, whether they are average people or high performing people in the team, they are built based on how safe they feel and how safe they feel in taking decisions, and decisions that will impact the team themselves, how they will grow and how they will grow the organization. All right. Remember, there's something that I always tell my team now. My objective is not to build a team star. It's never that. It's around how we build a star team. Everyone in the team should be accountable towards what we need to deliver. All right. We succeed as a team, same as we fail as a team. So if there is some people who are average skilled, it's on the accountability of the team to see to it that these people grow. All right. So they keep each other accountable so that everyone grows, everyone is successful, so that they are successful at the end of the day. Have I answered your question? That's in my opinion.
Okay, so we have some more questions. I think Shimen mentioned around recording, mentioned why SIM is being recorded. And then Avi, I feel safety depends on trust among teammates.
Yeah, very important, trust. Everything is built on trust, and just like trust, safety takes a lot of time and energy to build, and it takes seconds to dissolve it.
We have another question. So what should we do if someone breaches the social contract?
All right. So if someone breaches a social contract, I think it's again a conversation among the team, because if someone breaches a contract, it might mean that there is some type of conflict in there or some type of disagreement. And as a team, they need to agree, all right, have that conversation with each other. Why has the breach happened? Maybe it's because it's no longer applicable to the team or to a team member. So understand that and try to see how they can update their social contract to reflect what that new team member or what that person wanted, or have that conversation, in fact, have that conversation to see what can be done as a team perspective to ensure that this doesn't happen.
Thank you, Subash. Another question. So if we have a low safety check, how can we increase the safety of the team?
All right, so that was part of the question that I asked everyone. So just to reiterate what I did, like my experience when there was a low safety was that was in that retrospective. And what I did was I canceled the retrospective. I rescheduled it to some other day. And then what I did was I sat down with each person in the team, one-to-one, individual one-to-one, talk to them to understand what was the issue and why is safety low, and try to guide them what to do to increase safety, like try to guide them towards solution on the issues. Normally when safety is low, it's because there is some conflict in the team, or because there is someone who is more of a command and control and they are controlling the team, and the team doesn't really want to be controlled, so they don't want to really say anything. So then based on the situation, try to guide the team towards how to build on that and increase the safety.
Thank you. Another one from Avi. So I think we need to find ways to nurture trust and don't leave it to luck.
Yeah. Or mistake. But I agree to that.
Do we have any other questions from the forum here? So no, it seems no. So thank you, Subash. So I'll leave Roy to give some details
pleasure.
on our group. So it was a very nice session and looking forward to hear from you again soon.
Yeah, indeed, Danusha. Sorry.
Thanks,
Thank you,
it was my
Subash.
pleasure.
Yeah, for this wonderful
pleasure.
talk and answering question. And thanks everyone also for being with us today. And as a reminder, please feel free to follow us on our various channels that will paste in the chat just after. And please give us your feedback in these channels. And finally, stay tuned for our next session and wish you a very nice evening or a nice day to some of you. I'll just paste right now the
I've
different
pasted it.
links.
So,
You done it?
yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
cool.
yes.
Thanks, Danisha.
Avi, you mentioned, do you have a Slack? So we are relatively new, so we are working on it. So we have our YouTube, LinkedIn website, so coming soon. So if you follow us, you'll see as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thanks, Subash. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice day. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Jeremy, you'll stop the video.